23rd of June 2020. Cinemas have just reopened after a 4-month hiatus due to the pandemic, and South Bank is showing a 25th year anniversary of Michael Mann's Heat, starring Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and witnessing that shootout scene in theaters, that became one of my favorite cinema going experiences ever. But the thing is, South Bank isn't even one of my top 5 cinemas in Brisbane. And starting with number 5 on my list is Event Cinemas Orion. Now I know what you're thinking, starting out with a big chain cinema, where are all the art house, where are all the indie cinemas? But Orion was opened in 2015, so it's a relatively new theatre in a developmental part of southeast Queensland that is quite new, so it's not super busy depending on when you go. It was one of the first real cinemas to kind of use Atmos, and they have 2 massive VMAX screens that when you're in there, it actually makes you feel like you're in some kind of coliseum with how big those VMAX screens and actually seating plan is. The thing I love about it is you don't have to go into a shopping center to enter the theater either as well. Easy parking outside. So not only was it great on price for the first 2 years it opened because they'll try and get people to go in and visit it, it still has one of the best VMAX theaters. And that's why Springfield Orion is my favorite event in Brisbane and number 5 of my favorite cinemas. And number 4 on my list is Dendy Cinemas Coorparoo, which is built in the back end of 2017. Being a relatively new cinema, it has state-of-the-art screen, sounds, their premium leather chairs as well. Depending on where you live in Brisbane, it's only 10 minutes outside the Brisbane CBD. I lived in Coorparoo for some time, so it was a really attractive option to go there and see art house films. They also support theatre and that kind of stuff without having to venture into the city. They'd show a lot of retro and or more so anniversary screenings than retro. One of my favorite experiences was seeing Kill Bills Volume 1 and 2 this year for Valentine's Day with my wife, and that is definitely the Valentine's Day type of thing that we would do, being big Quentin Tarantino fans. And a couple of years ago now, we saw the Apocalypse Final Cut 4K restoration, and they actually showed a 1-hour Q&A after the film with Francis Ford Coppola that was recorded earlier in the year from Tribeca Film Festival. And to see that in a packed cinema and to see so many people stick around for that 1-hour Q&A was awesome, especially being a mammoth 4-hour thing. One of my favorite movies of all time, enhanced more from being in that kind of state-of-the-art cinema in Dendy Coorparoo. And number 3 on my list is Palace Centro on James Street. Can't help but feel a little bit classy walking up those stairs. The theatres themselves are a little bit smaller, but not to their detriment, because they have this really intimate feel, and just the whole around awesome aesthetic and vibe of the place makes it a fantastic place to see film. They have arts, theatres, all that kind of stuff, but my favorite experience was going to see Parasite in June of 2019, before it kind of really blew up. And then you flash forward 9 months, it wins the Oscar that same night and day. It won the Oscar for us here in Australia and Brisbane. I went to see a black and white cut of that the same night, and it just added a more terrifying moment to it. And they also showed 2001 Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's 70mm cut for the 50th anniversary, and they had the intermission in between as well. And sitting in its most purest and glorious form, and having that intermission when Hal sees them kind of lip reading and all chaos ensues after the intermission, just added another element to it. So if you can get to James Street, it's a fantastic cinema all around. Number 2 on my list is Reading Cinemas Newmarket. Even though I live on the south side of Brisbane, it is well worth the trek to make it over to this theatre, which was opened in 2017. The Titan Lux experience is one of the best experiences you will have, and the most comfortable experience I've ever had in a theatre. It has a 23-meter screen, Dolby Atmos 360-degree sound, and massive leather reclining chairs that you could basically fit 2 of me in. It basically costs the same price as what you would pay for your standard VMAX, but comfort-wise, absolutely blown out of the water. And although I said that Springfield has a 24-meter screen, here at the Newmarket Cinema, there is no wall space wasted. It feels like you're so close to the screen no matter where you're sitting, and it is actually on top of you. So that is why Reading Cinema is easily the most comfortable you can get. And they hold so many press screenings and review screenings there, and it's no surprise that they do that because of that comfort level and having that best experience possible. But even with that said, it isn't my number one cinema in Brisbane. And number one on the list, the creme de la creme, my favourite cinema in Brisbane is 5 Stars New Farm Cinema. If you were to get into a 1981 DeLorean DMC-12 and transport back through time, instead of stopping in 1955, you stopped in the late 60s to 70s and got out and walked into a cinema, this would be New Farm Cinema without a doubt. Parts of the building are heritage listed, so it's got this amazing late 60s, early 70s aesthetic from when it was opened as one of the first twin cinemas in Brisbane. The brown and yellow carpet, the timber roofs, the exposed brick walking up to the candy bar, the way that they have all the old school movie posters around, the round windows, all the way up until their showcase theater, which is the purple room, which is just a sight to behold with that kind of rounded roof and purple vinyl covered chairs and purple everything. Amazing experience. They showcase 35mm films, they do projection tours when they run these things, and the curation, that's where it comes down to me. That's where it's my favorite. Got to see Godfather trilogy there this year. Old Boy re-release. Of course, a few other cinemas showed that as well, but they also showing David Lynch films each week across a number of seasons. These curations are hand-picked from people that love movies. May not be the most comfiest cinema with the latest and greatest state-of-the-art stuff, but for pure movie nostalgia and that feeling that you had as a kid when you first saw the wonders of going to a theater, New Farm just nails it all and everything. New Farm is the reason you go to movies, the reason you went to movies back then, and the reason you go to movies now. And that's why it will always be my number one theater in Brisbane.